I would like to invite John, who's our security expert from T-Systems. Welcome, John. How are you doing
Hi
today?
guys. Yeah, thank you for inviting. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's very exciting to talk about security. Yeah, in the morning. Yeah, good. Looking forward to the session for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, John. But yeah, over to you, John.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Mathew George, and today I got an opportunity to speak on a security topic, which I hope would be interesting for all of you. Um, and just before I start, I want to give you a short introduction about myself. My name is John Mathew George, based in Bonn, Germany, and working for T Systems International GmbH as a cloud solutions architect, mainly focused on the security part of it. And about my experience, I have almost 15 plus years of experience in IT and almost 7 years of experience in the security portfolio, usually helping customers to come up with a secure design for the applications, for the infrastructure, and that's what I support with. So today, I welcome all of you to this session, and I want to thank the DevSecon team and T-Systems International for creating such an event where we can share our thoughts and ideas and connect the community together. And so, yeah, before we spending a lot of time on introductions, I will directly like to jump onto the topic. So the topic I want to talk to you today is AWS as a cloud platform secure for critical, mission critical data or sensitive data. So, and this would be focused on what we should know, what is a cloud, right? And how we can make sure when we move our data to cloud is secure. So this would be a very basic session talking about different layers of security that we need to implement for having a secured environment for us on cloud. And yeah, looking forward to it and hope you guys have a interactive session. We will have some question and answer rounds at the end of this talk. We will be able to answer, happy to answer any of your questions. Please feel free to ask me as many questions as you want. Or if you are interested in any topic after this session for the next topics, next talks, please feel free to just let me know as well in the chat or in the comments, so we can arrange another session for you or have a deep dive on any of the topics. Good. So let me start. So when companies try to move to cloud, there are a lot of questions, and especially if it's a financial sector or health sector or public sector companies that deals with critical information, but that deals with sensitive data, yeah. And they said, okay, I mean, is it really feasible for me to move to cloud? So they are, okay, I don't know where my data is stored. How can I control it? Do I have transparency on my data? Does AWS have access to data? Can they tamper the data? What should I do to make sure my data is compliant to the local regulations? Yeah, for example, if you're in the EU, then you have to make sure uh, you comply with GDPR and all these trends too, and all these things. Yeah. So how can I make sure I comply to that? And how can AWS help me in doing this? So there are a lot of questions. Yeah. So today I want to touch on a few topics that would enable you to make sure that your data is secured, you move it to cloud in a secure way, and you manage it and make sure you comply to the regulations. So let's start. Previously, traditionally, when people used to talk about security, there was this concept, okay, we have to be secure. Yeah. So, but we cannot move fast because we cannot change our environments so fast because we need to maintain our security, right? We have to buy bigger equipment, you have to change your hardware, your IPS, IDS devices. because as the latest versions come in to improve, make sure the security is in place, and the latest softwares don't really support it. So it was always a struggle in the past to move rapidly to the next step of the applications or deliverables. Yeah. So, but nowadays, as cloud has evolved and giving customers a lot of flexibility and options to move to cloud, now people are trying to move fast and still stay secure, and that's possible, yeah, because people have nowadays containers and they can kind of containerize the application, they can move everything to cloud, and it's so easy, and you can build in security within your framework, yeah, into your CI/CD pipeline, into whatever you do, you can have the security in place. So you can make sure what you build as the end product is always secured. So, and now the question is, okay, I know all these things, but how can AWS help you? Help me or help us as an organization, yeah? So that is the question I want to answer today, and guide you basically on how they can be enabled. So just to give you a few examples, yeah, of use cases we have for financial sectors and healthcare, there are a lot of companies on cloud, on AWS, yeah, as a trusted platform provider, right? So you have NASDAQ, Dow Jones, and you all see all these testimonials. I mean, you can go to the testimonials webpage where we can see, okay, there are a lot of companies using AWS, yeah, financial, healthcare, and these critical systems on AWS, and how they are doing that, yeah, how they are making sure their data is secure. So this is just an example to show that people are using AWS for using their hosting or delivering services for the critical content. Yeah. So the first thing that I want to come to is AWS supports variety of standards of compliance. Yeah. So if you talk about SOC 2, if you talk about CSA, PCI, HIPAA, ISO, I mean, you talk about all these compliances for different countries. AWS is certified and compliant to a lot of compliance requirements, yeah. And they keep on renewing that compliance, having the audits on regular basis. So this gives you a kind of a trust saying, okay, they are being audited by a third-party company, and it's certified, and that gives you kind of a bit more trust onto the cloud provider. Yeah, that's the first part, I would say. And these compliance programs, you can check that on the AWS website. It's publicly available. You can even download the artifacts. So you can, if you want to say, okay, I want to know how it's PCI compliant, what all checks have been done, you can download these artifacts from websites, from AWS. Yeah, so you can go to AWS artifacts and you can download it. It's publicly available. You can have a read through it and see what all checks have been made, and the compliance checklist. Yeah, so that's really amazing, and that gives you a bit more transparency from an AWS perspective. Yeah. So the question is, how can I protect my data on AWS? Yeah. So the first thing is you have to design your architecture in a way it's secured. Yeah, because AWS, as you all know, is a cloud provider. It works on a shared responsibility model. Yeah, so AWS is responsible for the physical infrastructure, the hardware, all these machines physically, as well as the managed services, yeah, layer. But whatever you build on top, it's your responsibility. So it's our responsibility. So your responsibility to make sure you design the architecture in a very good fashion that's very secure. Yeah, making sure there's security groups are in place, and making sure you have firewalls in place. You have all these security tools available, and designed in a way that it's much more secure. Yeah. And then you have to make sure, okay, you have designed the infrastructure, you migrate the infrastructure in a secure fashion to AWS. And also making sure you have proper encryption in place, which is really a big topic nowadays. I'll come to that in a few minutes. You have mechanisms in place, you have good logging and monitoring in place, and the security should be built in within your pipelines. Yeah. So if you take care of all these basic concepts around security, you can really make sure that your data on cloud is secure. Yeah. So let's jump on to the next topic is what all services are available as a customer for me from AWS. Yeah. So AWS has a lot of services. They have more than 200 plus services. Yeah. So you have to know what you can use to make sure your environments are protected. So this is just an example of AWS security services. Yeah. So that you can use to kind of design your architecture, making sure you have proper detection, monitoring, alerting, and remediation and automations in place. So you have things like Security Hub, CloudTrail, Macie, Detective, all these nice services. Yeah. Then that you can combine together and to have a very, very secure environment. Yeah. So this is the NIST model that I'm talking about. Very, very useful. And there are a lot of nice tools that can allow you to automate your incidents, automate your security. But it has to be done, yeah, in a proper fashion. Okay. So let me come to the talk about services that allows you to protect your data, yeah, that you can use to make sure your data is protected. The very first topic is confidential computing. Yeah. So that's a very interesting topic, and how we can make sure the virtualization layer is secured, the computing, the networking, and the storage, all these layers are secured. So confidential computing is a concept that AWS is working on, and they started developing Nitro processors. Yeah. So I will come into the details in the next slide. I just want to quickly go through different services that really helps you to make sure that your data is secure. I will talk about the details of these services in the coming slides. So AWS Nitro is something you would like to remember. AWS Nitro provides you with confidential computing, which providing segregation between different layers, yeah, and providing more transparency and security to the customers. Yeah. Then we talked about encryption. Yeah, so we have to make sure when you do, if you want data to be more secure, you have to make sure everything is encrypted. Yeah, so encryption of all services. Yeah, in rest and in transit. So make sure that your S3 buckets are encrypted, making sure your storage is encrypted, and if your databases are encrypted. Yeah. So just make sure that everything that you use on AWS is encrypted. And we talk about the details on what different kinds of encryption that you can use on AWS, and different layers of security in coming slides. Yeah. And the next thing that we want to make sure is that you anonymize or make sure that you don't put any personal information on cloud. Yeah, making sure you anonymize your PII data. That's what I want to talk about. So and how you can detect it, yeah, and making sure, okay, you anonymize it. So there's a service called Amazon Macie that allows you to scan the contents of your files and folders and everything, and then making sure that you get a good view. Okay, do you have credit card information? Does the data have email addresses, phone numbers, or any XYZ parameter that you want to make sure that your data doesn't have, or want to get some visibility onto that personal information within your data? That's possible with Amazon Macie service. Yeah, so that is something that that's very interesting. I will talk about it as well, and that would give customers a good insight on personal identifiable information. Yeah. Then the very important thing, is make sure your secrets are your passwords or everything is rotated and it's in a secured fashion. There should be no hard-coded secrets in the code, and everything should be managed securely and rotated in frequent intervals so that it's always safe, and there's no attack surface. That's something that we need to make sure that happens, and AWS Secrets Manager would help you in achieving that part of the compliance, And and the fifth point that we need to make sure is we enforce policies and tagging strategies. So one of the recommendations I always give to the customer is from the start, you have to make sure within your code base, when you trigger an infrastructure or any pipeline, you have to make sure all the resources that are being spinned should be tagged with the recommended tags or according to your organization policies. There are multiple benefits of tagging. First of all, you can keep a track of your cost. You can keep a track of security. So if you want to automate stuff, okay, there's an incident and okay, this happened on this particular tagged environment, and this is talking, and you can actually automate the entire incident management using tagging. You can enforce policies using tagging. So if you say, I have a set of machines for tagged development, or tagged finance, and I can put policies. Okay, these machines should only be accessible by the team members of this role, or by the team members, or you can use tagging to automate certain processes. Just restart these sandbox tagged machines after 6 p.m. So that's something you can do infinite lot of things, using tagging if you have proper tagging strategy. And enforcing policies is something that I would say that's something very, very important that you need to make sure that you close down things that you don't need. And for example, services that you don't need. So allow users to use only services that are required. For example, EC2 or S3 or WAF or whatever. So there are a lot of services, so you only allow certain services that are used within that account or within that organization using the policies. I will come to the details as well. And also there's a service called AWS Config, so where you can actually define a configuration. And you say, okay, I want my organization to be compliant to these standards. Then you set up that template, and you can define that template within for your organization, saying, okay, I want my organization to be PCI, for example, it's just an example, compliant. So you can define a template with certain rules. Okay, these are the PCI rules that I want to make sure that all my services are compliant to that. So, and then you apply that compliance on the organization level. And as soon as any service is launched or triggered that doesn't comply to the compliance requirements, it will be flagged as non-compliant. And then you can trigger basically remediations to auto-comply it or make sure that it's automatically remediated. Just a example. And then you can fix the compliance. That's automatically can be done. Or if you want some manual approvals, it can also be done. But you can make sure that you have a transparency on your environment, saying, okay, my environment is compliant or not compliant. There are a lot of templates available as well. So if you have a certain requirement of PCI, HIPAA, or any compliance standards that we talked about, and you want to be compliant, for example, to CIS benchmark, we can just select, there are a lot of templates, you can select the template and then making sure that you apply it to the organization level, and then you will get more visibility on the compliance of the organizations. That's the fifth point. And the last but not the least is a very important one, is that we should continuously monitor our environments for security, as well as making sure we get alerted on time. There's a proper incident management workflow. There's automations in place to make sure that incidents are remediated and alerted at different levels. So that's part of basically a very secured operational workflow. Yeah, so that we have to make sure all these things are in place. AWS provides a bunch of services for doing it. Yeah, so I've mentioned a lot of services, a few services here, but in the previous section, I told there are a lot of services that would enable you to detect incidents and automate incidents. Yeah, so I will touch few of them in the coming slides, but I would recommend you to go to the AWS security website and go through these services, the amazing services that would help you to get insights to security incidents and how to deal with that. Good. So let me move on to the interesting topic, Nitro. So Nitro is a confidential computing platform developed by AWS, and now most of the EC2, latest generation EC2 machines or AMIs are using the Nitro in the backend. Yeah. So what is Nitro? So what they have done is they have taken the hypervisor and they have segregated different components and taken out different components out and created different layers. For example, create physical separation between EC2 and network and PCI and storage. Yeah. So there are multiple PCI cards that are being used for EBS. There's a PCI card for VPC. And there's a security chip as well in between that makes sure the calls between EC2, the hypervisor, and the network PCI Express card is always secured, right? And there is no communication happening that's not authenticated or secured, yeah, using encryption. So all these things are happening, and I would recommend you to go to the AWS Nitro website. We'll give you a very big detail on the architecture. And the best part is now that you can use it. Yeah, you can also enable Nitro enclaves for having compute environments totally protected and secure for highly sensitive data. Yeah, so it's a kind of AWS support personnel don't have access. There's no human access on that environment. It gives you a big confidence that it's certified by FIPS as well. So you can make sure that this is very, very secured. Yeah. And there are only certain limited API operations available on these platforms just for updating the software and certain operations. So I would say even the AWS support team doesn't have any access on this architecture or these hypervisors. Yeah, so it's very difficult for them to. It's not even possible for them to basically get access to customer data if you are on this kind of architecture. Yeah, so that gives customers a bit more confidence. Yeah, that's okay. The data is more secure, and there are evidences as well. And I would definitely encourage you to go to the website and list it here and get more glimpse onto that. Good. So let's talk about the interesting topic for me is encryption. Yeah. So encryption, it's very important that you encrypt your data. Yeah. Encrypt everything as much as you can on cloud, and that's very important. Yeah. I would say all the files, objects, S3 buckets, storage, databases, encrypt everything and don't leave anything unencrypted. Yeah, that gives you more control on your data. Okay, so now the question is, okay, who holds the keys? Yeah, so what are different types of encryption that I can use? Basically, there are three options for you when it comes to encryption. Yeah. So the very first option is using KMS, and that's the very simple way of doing it. It's a service available, the key management service is available out of the box. You can use it, and using that service, we can make sure that your data on AWS is encrypted. Yeah, and it's a very convenient service. Yeah, easily integrated to AWS services. And the next option that you have is using Cloud HSM. So basically, the Cloud HSM is a hardware module in AWS data centers, FIPS certified, and you get a virtual part of that hardware module, and you have full control. The customer has full control on the Cloud HSM. They can create the master keys and then use those master keys to generate data keys and encrypt your S3 buckets or databases or whatever your services that you use. Yeah? And so that's the second option. Yeah, both the options that you use, KMS or Cloud HSMs, are both FIPS certified. Yeah, so it's industry standard for hardware security modules, and it's being audited on a yearly basis. So it's secured. Yeah. And the third option is something, okay, you say, okay, no, I mean, the keys that I use should be owned by me. Yeah? I don't want AWS to hold the keys. Yeah? So even if you use KMS or if you use Cloud HSM, still the keys remain in AWS. Yeah, you say, okay, no, I have critical workload, sensitive workload. I cannot have AWS access to my keys. I want my keys to be with me. Yeah, that's the way people used to work before. Yeah. So I think that's still possible. Yeah. So AWS provides you with the third option where you can bring in your keys onto cloud. So if you say, okay, I have my own hardware HSMs in my data center, yeah, I can get the keys from there and use those keys on AWS. Perfect. That's also possible. So you can bring your keys. You can generate a master key in your data center. Use that master key to generate data keys, and you can, I would say, encrypt data keys, and use those data keys to connect to those services. Yeah, so that's possible. And if you're very concerned about the keys and how it's managed, you can use that. So that's one part of it. But there are, I would say, that's the security aspect of it. It's more secure if you think if you don't want AWS to have access to it. But there are some what do you call cons to it. Is like the keys, there would be a slight delay, because the keys are outside the AWS infrastructure. So you have to make sure you have a good connection between the AWS and your HSMs. So it might be either a what do you call a direct connect or a IPsec VPN, whatever you want to use here. But you should have a good bandwidth. And the other thing is like you are responsible to make sure that the network connectivity is up and your HSMs are able to deliver the queries up to the requirement of these services. Yeah. So that if you are encrypting data, decrypting data, and you have your master keys in HSMs, you have to make sure your HSMs or the software that you're using is able to resolve the queries in a good fashion and time. Otherwise it would have issues. So just make sure that happens on time. So, and if you're able to do that nicely, in a nice fashion, it would surely work. And I've seen customers using those solutions, and yeah. So I hope it works for them in a nice fashion. Yeah. So yeah, that's the third option. Yeah. So making sure that you can encrypt everything, encrypt as much as you can. Yeah. On cloud, and making sure that you have monitoring in place to make sure there is no encrypted, unencrypted objects or services or lying around, and making sure that everything is automatically encrypted at launch. Yeah. So that's about encryption. The next thing is to making sure to use the SSL certificates, to making sure that everything is secured. Along with encryption, you have to make sure, there's SSL in the transit. There is everything is secured. Yeah. So we talked about what do you call security at the rest, and security in transit. So making sure that you use proper certificates in place. So you can use Certificate Manager, AWS Certificate Manager, that's a service to generate public CAs or private certificates or public certificates according to your requirement. Yeah. So if you're using it for a website and you want to have a public CA that's available, or if you just want for talking within the application, within your internal environments, please go ahead and use private CAs, and making sure that everything, all the communication that you do is secured and authenticated. Yeah. So there are, and this service, the Certificate Manager, is compliant to a lot of compliances like HIPAA, SOC, ISO, PCI, etc. So the underlying architecture is really, really secure for you to use. Yeah. Okay. The next topic that I want to talk about is Amazon Macie. Yeah? So Amazon Macie gives you, as I told in my previous slide, gives you visibility to personal identifiable information. Yeah? So you can configure Amazon Macie to detect credit card information, email addresses, phone numbers, bank account details, whatever. Yeah, within your S3 buckets, and you say, okay, you can actually get a good view of it. How does it look like? How many? And then you can automate that. Yeah. So if you say, okay, I found these credit card numbers, just go ahead and anonymize it, and then you can have Lambda functions triggered to making sure automation's in place so that any detected information, personally identified information, is then anonymized, and making sure, okay, before it goes to production, it's safe. Yeah. So things like that is easily available and easily can be done using Amazon Macie, and I encourage you to do that. It can actually analyze a lot of file formats, so text, JSON, XML, as you see here, different kinds of file formats. It can analyze, and it can actually give you more insight to what's happening. And you can then take required decisions, and making sure that you're compliant to your compliance requirements. Or if you can, if you want, you can also have custom data types. So as I told previously as well. Yeah, this is just an example of the screenshot from Macie, how it looks like. Yeah, so basically you can see, okay, there's a zip code, there are passwords there, and all these things. So you can basically analyze using Macie and then automate to remediate that. Yeah. So this is just an example of using Macie for within your data pipelines, to discover sensitive information. So there's a blog as part of AWS, so that you can also have a look at it, and making sure, okay, if you have any sensitive information in your environments, you can automate the detection and remediation. Yeah. So I will encourage you to have a look at it when you get some time. Yeah. And making sure, you're running on a secured environment. Cool. So let's move on to the next slide. Next topic is Secrets Manager. As I told, it's very important that you are able to ensure your credentials are safe, and able to manage them, rotate them, and creating a life cycle policy around your secrets. And that's a secure way of managing things and making sure if you're sharing secrets between applications, making sure that it's secured and remains secured. And it's not that expensive as well. It's very cheap, and it's on a pay as you go model. So I encourage you to use Secrets Manager as much as you can, and don't hard code anything. No credentials hard coded within your applications or anywhere, right? So use Secret Manager service, and making sure that everything is in a fine grained control. So I've shared some insight. Okay, what can it do, right? It can prevent devs from doing or sharing secrets and all these things, making sure it's secured, right? So Please use Secret Manager to make sure that your credentials are safe. Yeah. The next thing that next service that I want to talk about is AWS Config. Yeah. So as I told, you can really maintain a list of configurations that you want to. So just to give you a very basic example, what is the capability of config? So you can actually maintain a template, right? So you can say, okay, I want no buckets in my environment to be public. That's the compliance requirements. Yeah. So you can set a config rule, and as soon as any bucket is public, it will trigger an alert. Yeah. And then you get an alert. And now it's upon you how to decide what to do with the alert. Yeah, I mean, or you can just tell the config to auto remediate. You can create a Lambda function, or you can attach it to the config alert saying, okay, if I see any non-compliance saying public S3 buckets, go ahead and make it private automatically. Yeah, then you do a auto remediation in place. Yeah. So you can trigger that automation within config, saying, okay, there's a non-compliant resource, go ahead and make it compliant. So the S3 buckets would automatically be turned to private, and it would be compliant to your compliance requirements. Yeah. Another example is IP address open to the world, yeah, or ports open to the world. So you're using SSH 22. And you say, okay, it's open to 000, and you want to make sure that that doesn't happen anytime. Yeah. So you apply this config rule on your environment organization, saying, okay, within my organization, I want to make sure there are no open ports. Yeah. And as soon as there's an open port, you will be notified using config. Yeah. Now it's upon you how you want to remediate it. So usually what we do here is we trigger an automation saying, okay, if you find an open port and it's 0000, open to the world, make sure it's reverted back to the local VPC IP range. Yeah. So automatically it switches the range to the local VPC IP range. So it's not open to the public now. Yeah. So that's the auto remediation that you have. That's just an example. Then or you can auto remediate, auto put any IP address that you would like to, and for your internal use. Yeah. So those kind of things really helps you to secure your environment. And config, these are just two very basic examples. Config can do much more. Yeah. So you can trigger highly confiscated, what do you call it, or critical automations using config. Yeah. And trigger automations, and that will really make sure that you're compliant to your compliance requirements. Yeah. The next topic is tag policies and service control policies. I talked about it a bit before, making sure you have strict tagging in place. All your resources should be tagged with all the tags required. Yeah, I mean, for billing purposes, for security, for as you want to manage your organization, yeah, so that you can get full visibility and you can trigger automations, you have security in place, yeah. So that is possible using tag policies available within AWS organizations. Yeah. There's also service control policies. So service control policies are set of policies you can define, yeah, to make sure all the accounts within your organization is secured enough. Just to give you an example, okay, if you say, okay, I have an organization within EU, yeah, or within Paris or Frankfurt, you can limit the services within that territory. Yeah? I can say, okay, I would allow my users to only use services within this region. Yeah. I want them only to use these services. Yeah, I don't want them to use anything else. Yeah, I want to restrict users from modifying my CloudTrail or modifying my logs, etc. So you can basically do put a lot of restrictions or put a lot of controls in place using service control policies. Yeah, and making sure everything is strictly audited and controlled. Yeah, for example, if you say users from certain department, yeah, can only trigger is a launch of an EC2 machine, if the template, the CloudFormation template or Terraform template has certain tags, they have to make sure that it's tagged properly. And if it's not tagged properly, it would not really spin up the instances. So that's a kind of way to control the stale infrastructure, or making sure everything is compliant to your organizational requirements. So there has to be FinOps, security operations, everything is tagged properly, and you're good to go. So it's then when you do a billing transparency, or when you do a billing review, you see, okay, I see a lot of machines being spinned up by the finance team, in the finance team with certain tags, or in the development team with certain tags. And it gives you very good visibility to your management. But if you don't tag things properly, you will not be able to find out who did what, and who is the owner of certain machines, and where the cost goes to. So it's very difficult. So it's very important that you tag things and making sure you enforce policies. Some examples next is you can deny, as I said, access based on AWS. The creation of resources without certain tags. So these are two examples. You can do infinite number of things using this. The next topic, I would say the last topic that I want to talk about, is continuous monitoring alerting. So that's very important. A lot of tools within AWS that you can use: GuardDuty, CloudTrail, Inspector, Macie, to detect all these incidents and vulnerabilities and scan vulnerabilities on a regular basis. And then you can combine all these, get a single view using Security Hub, and Detective as well. And then you can trigger automations, saying, okay, if a vulnerability is found, what it needs to do. And also get complete end-to-end visibility. And that's something that's very much required to have a secured environment. And we have to make sure that happens. And I would say there are a lot of automations you can trigger. So for example, if you use Security Hub, you can integrate to EventBridge, and making sure all these automations work in place and the remediations in place, automatically taking care of your incidents. And if you are a big fan of automation, you really love it. So AWS allows you to automate basically everything, as much as you can. So that gives you the flexibility to work on new stuff, innovate stuff, without worrying about, okay, what do I do? Like in our traditional infrastructure, okay, this incident happened, I don't know what to do. There's a lot of manual stuff. But here you can automate anything. For example, I'll just give you some example out of this, not this presentation, but something else. If you see an incident here in your EC2 machine, there's a what do you call, DDoS attack, you don't know what to do, you can trigger automations to detect the DDoS attack, automatically isolate the machine, take it to a different account for what do you call, investigations, remove security groups, and isolate it completely, and notifying the owners. Everything can be automated. So that's the beauty of it. So that gives the security guys more confidence and innovate, and making sure that everything is secured enough. And I would say Security Hub is a tool that integrates all these different other tools, and then on top of it, we can get a complete visibility of your security posture. If you're able to comply to CIS benchmark or PCI, whatever compliance requirements you have, and also trigger automation. So if you look at, there's a feature called Security Hub Automated Response and Remediation. You can use CloudWatch event rules and Lambda functions to trigger automation based on any findings, or any vulnerabilities. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go ahead and check that out. And we use that within our organization. It works really great. And so I mean, it's very important that you get full transparency. You have a good logging mechanism, you have a centralized logging, you have visibility to what's happening within your account, and you are able to remediate that. So if you follow all these recommendations, you can really be very confident that your data is secure. So to wrap it up, the things that I talked about is use Nitro instances, use encryption wherever you can, making sure there's no personal identifiable information on your account, and making sure the credentials are managed correctly, rotated, and making sure you have password policies in place, you have use Secrets Manager as much as you can, and enforce tagging policies, service control policies, config rules, and making sure you have proper logging, monitoring, alerting in place. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. I want to conclude this session, but just one thing, that if you are interested to know about any of these things, any of these services in detail, like, okay, John, can you have another session on encryption and decryption, for example, yeah, in detail? I would love to do that. Or vulnerability management, or any other topic. If you say, okay, you're not sure how it can be done on AWS, and if you need a deep dive technical session, please feel free to get in touch with me using the barcode on my introduction screen, and connect with me on LinkedIn, or give your feedback to the DevSecOn community. And I would be really happy to kind of, to have another session on a deep dive session with you guys. Thank you everyone. And please feel free to ask any questions if you have. I will try to answer as best as possible. And thank you, DevSecOn community and T-Systems, for providing me with this opportunity. And yeah, you all have a nice day. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, John. That was brilliant. Yeah, that was a really great insight from you. Yeah, well done, John. There are some questions I would like to bring it up on the screen, and yeah, let's see. Yeah, so from Gogi, sorry if I said that right. Implementing these data protection measures in such a fast changing, moving environment like cloud, having very short time for everything is very difficult. What do you think about that, John?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a valid point, and we know that, and at AWS they have providing a lot of tools. Yeah, I mean, for example, I would say if you don't know what to do, and if it feels so complicated with all these tools, there's something called Control Tower. There's a service, yeah, called Control Tower, that you can really utilize to make sure you spin up your infrastructure with the security best practices. If you want any certain kind of compliance, you can select the guardrails. Okay, this has to be compliant there, and it would automatically spin up it would automatically kind of does the automation in the back end and gives you all the checks and measures in place. So I think, yeah, you can try using Control Tower or Security Hub, basically automating all the security in the back end. So the customers don't have to go through the nitty-gritties of all these small services. Yeah, everything is integrated into these services, and basically, yeah, you can get a full transparency of what's going on. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, John. There's same question from Georgi again. So, do you have any best practice on how to do it compared to physical systems? So it's just a follow-up question on the previous one.
Right. So as I said, I mean, in the link that was posted by Mathew previously, like security, identity, and compliance, that link has, I mean, they provide best practices on how to set up your have a secured infrastructure on cloud, yeah, using different services, what measures you need to take. So everything is documented, so you can download that PDF.
I think you're breaking up, John.
And if you are Security Hub, and that would really help you to. I think, yeah, can you hear me now?
John, you're breaking
Can you
up
hear
a
me
little
now?
bit. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I think there was a
We're
network
back.
glitch. Yeah, so what I was saying is there are a lot of tools available, Control Tower, Security Hub that can be used, as well as these security white papers. There are white papers available on the Amazon website. You can download it, and that would really explain the best practices and how to use the cloud infrastructure in a secure way.
Yeah, for sure. So, John, as I ask everyone, every speaker, right? So you have a very overwhelming of security tools that you gone through, which is pretty good. You explained about what's the right tool to use for what reason. So, what would be the one takeaway for the audience that they should take away and go back and probably investigate more, or where they have to start from security on cloud, right? Because it's a little bit overwhelming for anyone to jump into AWS, look into the whole vast of services, what they do. So, what do you advise basically for somebody novice on AWS or cloud, where they can start on a security perspective?
As I said before, I mean, the very first thing is like you have to make sure that whatever you do has to be encrypted, yeah, and make sure that you start small, yeah, and learn stuff, and don't leave any open attack surface like what do you call open ports or anything on the cloud, and then use tools that can enable you to provide you with some transparency. Yeah, I mean, everybody is not an expert, so the tools that I said, I mean, very basic ones that allows you to see, okay, am I messing up or am I in a bad situation, or yeah, just make sure that you are compliant, uh, so that yeah, there is no attack surface that you're leaving open, and start slow. And I think yeah, I mean, you can learn stuff and try to automate as much as you can, so you can get more time in innovation and doing more cool stuff.
Cool. Thanks, Sean.